As the Nationals look for their next manager, I've got my wants and my needs.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And yes, we are the Locked On Nationals podcast, where it is your team every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And later on in today's show, after the last 5 days, we have yet to talk about baseball. We have talked about off-field things with ownership, as far as management, front office. But today, in the last segment, yes, we're going to talk about some baseball because James Wood is a monster. In the second segment, I have got my needs from the Washington Nationals. And as they embark on this new search, I've got a lot of things in mind that I want, but also have some needs. And we'll have that for you in that second segment. But we start off discussing my wants for a new manager. My number one want, it's going to be surprising. But before we jump into it, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. My wants and my needs for the Nationals' next manager are very different. But right now, my number one want is that I need a former player. I need a former player to relate to the guys. I need a former player to relate to these young Washington Nationals, because while it may get lost in the shuffle, Davey Martinez was that guy. And while I think a lot of people want to believe many different things, I never thought that Davey Martinez completely lost the clubhouse. I think there was a time where he was kind of on a slippery slope there, specifically last month when he called out the Nationals and said that it's not on the coaches and the coaches can't play for the players. That was a really dumb comment by Davey Martinez, and quite frankly, probably costed him his job. But I think that having a former player in today's climate, and really for where the Nationals are at this point, it's going to be very, very important. The Nationals this weekend are going to be adding the number one overall pick into this farm system. You already have James Wood. You've got Abrams. You saw MacKenzie Gore last night, who, by the way, dominated yet again. You need these young players to really kind of gel together, but also kind of have that shoulder to lean on. I think in these situations, the best kind of manager to have someone the best kind of manager for a rebuilding team is a former player. And I think a former player, number one, just understands the game. They understand these situations. They understand how guys may be feeling. That is something what Davey Martinez did really well, in my opinion. He had that balance of good cop and bad cop in him. And I think a lot of that comes from being a former player. It's easy to sit there and throw stones at this situation and say, Davey sucked. It's easy to say that. But right now, and just kind of looking at the facts of it, Davey did have a lot of those guys and did help a lot of those guys in many situations. He may not have been the best guy for this job these past few seasons, but I think Davey does have some characteristics where I'm like, I kind of want that. I do want that in my next manager. I do want someone who can play good cop and bad cop and just kind of be brutally honest with players. Because at times with guys like Mike Shildt, who never played in the major leagues, so I'm looking over the San Diego Padres, he's a great manager, but also at times it's kind of hard to relate to them. I want someone that these young players, as they continue to gel, and hopefully as his team gets better, I want a manager that my young players can simply rely on. And I think that comes being a former player. And right now, looking across Major League Baseball, you've got a ton of former players out there who are sniffing managerial jobs and who are also already sitting in that chair. I think it's very important for this team, whether it be an older guy, whether it be a younger guy, you need to have a former player sitting in that seat. I think it's important for this team. I think it's important for the situation that the Nationals are in. And again, I think it's important for these young guys to really have a former ball player being in that managerial position. Second, someone who understands analytics and then uses it, but also has that feel for the game. Let me explain myself. Analytics is today's game, whether we want to like it or not. That is what today's game is about. Analytics are used with the Dodgers. Analytics are used with the Cubs, the Tigers, all these teams that are just the top of the food triangle at this point. All these teams use analytics and they use it wisely. The Nationals have not been that. And Davey Martinez was not that. He was not your analytical guy who's going to really break it down with a clipboard and talking about different analytics and how this can affect that situation. But we need that in our next manager. And that's where I kind of separate from the Davey Martinez characteristics here. I think if you have a former player that, number one, gets analytics, but also has a feel for the game, that is your kind of perfect potion to be the Nationals' next manager. And let me explain that second half real quick, because having a feel for the game may seem a little bit different to you. So let's explain that. Whether it be runners on the corners or just name that situation out there, an analytic may say to bunt in that situation, or an analytic may say put the ball on the ground. In some situations, you should not be following analytics. Or let's just say this. A player is on a 15-game hitting streak. And all of a sudden tonight, you've got a lefty-lefty matchup. And that hitter who has been red hot, who has gotten hits in 15 straight games, you're just going to bench him because, oh, well, he doesn't hit well against lefties. But he's in the middle of a hot streak. That is kind of what I mean in that situation. Managers should have a feel for the game. Managers should have a feel for the situation. And if guys like MacKenzie Gore are out there, maybe the stats are against him saying that he's not good in the seventh inning, for example, here. And he's not good when you're facing guys for the third time in the order. Sometimes that may be right. But there's other times where he's 6 innings deep, he has struck out 10 batters, and he's given up 2 hits and no earned runs, and you're up 3-0. That's a time where a manager has to make a situation and has to have a feel for the game. If MacKenzie Gore is rolling, you should go to him in that 7th inning. And that is kind of that tricky line that you have to kind of walk here as a manager in 2025. Because again, a lot of these teams use analytics and they say, you know what, we got to go to our bullpen here. But if you look at the Nationals this year, this bullpen is a mess. It is a complete, utter mess at this point. So in that situation, I'm sticking with MacKenzie Gore. And that's just an example. Those stats are not used heavily here. I just needed to give you guys something to kind of think about, a food for thought, you could say. My manager, my next manager, is going to be a very important hire. This is not going to be someone that I want to be here for the short term. This is not someone that I want to be here just for this rebuild. This is the manager that I want to hopefully lead this team through these next few seasons, or however many years it takes to continue this rebuild. And then when they are winning, continue with this team. That is what I want. And also, last but not least, I think this goes without saying, being a good clubhouse guy. Having that understanding of players. It kind of goes with our first point here with being a former player, but someone who is not Matt Williams, who is not some drill sergeant demanding things and the players hate him after his second season with the team. You need to have a feel for the guys. And you need to be able to take that managerial hat off and just be a normal human. Be a good clubhouse guy. And I think with baseball in today's game, you're kind of going away from those drill sergeant managers now. And you're not really seeing them pop up and have any success. As we saw Tony La Russa a few years ago at the White Sox, one of the best managers of all time, back in the day at least. Then he went to the White Sox, rubbed everyone the wrong way, and he quickly got on out of there. It's not like that anymore. You need a good clubhouse guy, and I think the Nationals, hopefully, they will get that right moving forward. But thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen. Next, what are some needs for the Washington Nationals? I got my wants out of the way, but I've got some needs. And we'll talk more about those needs after this. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize that you want to be in the stands, and that's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress, and with the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it all possible, and Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. And of course, Gametime is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming MLB game. And of course, if you want to go to the Nationals game this upcoming week, you can do that after the All-Star break with the Nationals back in town. You can enjoy their Flash Zone deals, and of course, their exclusive deals with our friends at Locked On. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime and download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. If you haven't done so already, look up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your pods, and I mean literally wherever, on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. So again, look up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your pods. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. I got my wants out of the way. Now let's get into our needs for the Washington Nationals, because I need this. And these are like personal things that I, and probably you out there, also need. My number one need: better, more consistent lineup construction. Last night, Miguel Cairo, interim manager, I get it. Why do you have Brady House batting seventh? Why? Right now, the Nationals have no hope. They are not making the playoffs. The players are booking their vacations for October. Why are you batting Brady House seventh? You should be protecting this guy at all costs. You should be able to give this guy the ability to hit every single day. Then he should be up there with Brady, or he should be up there with James Wood. He should be up there with CJ Abrams. And when Dalen Lyle is in the lineup, he should be up there as well. You have to realize what you are in at this point. This is a rebuilding, retooling season, whatever you want to call it at this point. Things have changed. No one in the organization is here anymore that were calling the shots like Mike Rizzo and Davey Martinez. Mike DeBartolo, the interim GM, I hope to God he is meeting with Miguel Cairo as we speak right now, saying, hey man, let's get Brady House at the top of this lineup. He may not be performing that well, but he is putting the ball in play. He has a pretty decent batting average, and the power is not there yet. Let's get him some protection. Let's not have Riley Adams hit behind him, who goes 0 in yesterday's game. Let's not have him bat 2 batters ahead of Jacob Young. Let's put him up there with James Wood. Let's put him up there with Nathaniel Lowe and the guys who have been killing the ball lately. Why don't we do that? But they have not done it. And this is not just a Miguel Cairo issue, by the way. I mean, he's been managing just for 2 games. He's being told what to do at this point, I'm assuming. But this goes back with Davey Martinez, and it drove me insane. Look back at the pod in May or in April or in June and July. I've talked about it all the time. Have some consistent lineup construction here. And the Nationals have not been able to figure that out. It has wanted to drive me crazy at this point. I feel like I'm going crazy. I just want the Nationals to finally figure this thing out. They have not at all figured this out. That you need to protect your younger players. You need to figure this thing out. And if this team was trying to win right now, maybe the way that they were early on in the season, and I understand that, but you are not going to win without your younger players. Ahmed Rosario is not going to win you a game. He's not. Josh Bell is not going to win you a game. Riley Adams is not going to win you a game. And let alone those few guys that we just mentioned are not going to help you win 90 games in a season. Brady House is, James Wood is, and CJ Abrams certainly is. Help the younger guys out and get them in situations where they can succeed. And if they fail, then demote them. But it should take a while until you get to that point. That is a huge thing for me, is having better, more consistent lineup construction with this team. And I think it just goes to show you, again, kind of what we were mentioning for our wants as far as analytical needs go. You're looking at the numbers and you're like, well, Brady House isn't putting up 5 batter type numbers at this point. You're right, but have a feel for the situation. Realize that Alex Call is not going to be better in the 5 spot. Realize that Josh Bell likely will not be better in the 5 spot. If you are going to win games, it's because of Brady House and James Wood and CJ Abrams. So put them in situations so they can succeed. That is my number one need for the next Nationals manager. And I think hopefully by next season, these guys will be established. So we'll hopefully not have to worry about it. Although we'll see with who we draft number 1 overall this weekend. My number 2, no biases, always go with the best guy. I think Davey Martinez has very good traits about him, or had very good traits about him. He was a very trustworthy guy. If you're his guy, he is going to throw you out there every day, whether you're a bullpen piece or whether you're Josh Bell at this point. But there should be none of that. The best player should get the opportunities. The best player out there should absolutely warrant the at-bats. If it were up to me, Alex Call would be the one DHing in front of Josh Bell at this point. I understand why you want to make Josh Bell work, and especially towards the trade deadline, I understand really why you want to now, because you want to get a team's 30th best prospect for them. Sure, I get it. But over the years, there are guys, position players, where I'm like, why is he in this lineup every single day? And why isn't Luis Garcia Jr. in that same situation? Back in 2021, I'm thinking to myself that whole season, where is Luis Garcia Jr. and why is he not up? That may coincide with the GM and the manager, of course, but I feel as if that we had way too long of leashes for guys that we just knew was not going to work out. Like, for instance, the bullpen, Eduardo Salazar. We finally sent him back down to AAA, but still we continue to throw him out there in big-time situations. Call Marquise Grissom Jr. up today. Figure this thing out. He has not been all that great in AAA, but to use that as an excuse, I think is silly. DJ Hers last year was awful in AAA. We called him up, and all of a sudden, he was your best pitcher in the second half of the season for the Nationals. Literally. This team, and where you are now, you need to play the young guys. And you can't have like this thing in the back of the mind where you're like, well, I promised Josh Bell that he'd be the DH this year. You may have, but you also probably shouldn't have promised him that, number one. And number two, you probably should look at yourself and say, this guy is costing us games. We should probably take him out of the lineup at this point. That's kind of what I mean. And again, this is not just a Nationals issue. I think it's a baseball issue overall. But play the young guys. And again, that's kind of my next need for the next Nats manager. Next season, we're likely not going to contend. If we're just being honest here, we're likely not going to. You're blowing this thing up. We'll see what the Nationals do as far as their front office and their manager goes, and see if they do anything in the offseason, which we'll probably get into later on this week. But if a young player has potential, give them the opportunities. Cole Henry, for instance. Cole Henry early on this season was showing, like within his first few appearances, that you were like, oh my God, this guy's really good out of the bullpen. This guy's got some potential here. He could be really good. It took us until late May, early June for him to be pitching in high stress situations. And it was kind of head scratching because you're wondering, like, why is Lucas Sims coming in here with bases loaded? And why isn't Cole Henry coming in? Again, it goes back to like these young players and Davey Martinez overall having the training wheels on them. None of that anymore. Rip the Band-Aid off. Let this guy and let him go fly. That's kind of another need for what I would like to see for the Nationals' next manager. But guys, we have finally made it. It is Thursday. We have yet to talk about some baseball. I love talking about the new managers and new GMs and firings and all that. It's been a lot of content, but I miss some baseball. Let's talk about that after this. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. And think about the last time you had a service emergency like a bursted pipe. And if the plumber didn't answer, did you wait? Nope, you called the next one. And that's why having a reliable business line is so important. That's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. And did you juggle 2 phones just to keep businesses and personal calls separate? OpenPhone solved that instantly because your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. No more. Who's going to handle this, guys? So OpenPhone is offering Locked On Nationals listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonmlb. That's OpenPhone.com/lockedonmlb. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And on tomorrow's show, we'll be talking about the MLB draft because Nationals, after all, do hold the #1 overall pick in the MLB draft. Who could they be leaning towards? We'll have that discussion for you on tomorrow's Locked On Nationals. But now, let's talk some baseball. Let's finally talk some baseball. The Nationals just won Game 2 of the Cardinals series yesterday and Game 2 of Miguel Cairo's tenure. And it's been an emotional last few days for the guys here because, I mean, you just had Davey Martinez blown out. A lot of these guys who were hand-selected by Mike Rizzo and had a lot of faith in the front office. Mike Rizzo is also gone now. So these guys have feelings too. Like, it's been a lot for them. So these past few games really has not necessarily mattered. And the writing is on the wall that this is a team that is not making a postseason push. They are 38-54, but that does not stop us from having a MacKenzie Gore shub day. And we just have to talk about him because MacKenzie Gore is that guy for the Washington Nationals. And when you need someone to come in who has no heart, that's MacKenzie Gore. 6 innings pitched last night, 5 hits, 7 strikeouts in that game yesterday. I thought it was one of his best performances again all season. Like, this is one of those times where the players wear these firings on their sleeves. Like, this is not an easy situation to be a player because a lot of them may kind of think to themselves, like, we just got our manager fired. And not only that, we just got our president fired. The guy who has been here since 2006, who has been the decision maker, the main decision maker since 2009. And now we have this situation where we don't have those guys anymore. We've got interim tags in here, and we have some changes happening. Guys are getting sent down. Guys are on the injured list, and things seem to be unraveling right here in front of our eyes. But last night, the Nationals, they came to fight. 8 runs, and we had, of course, a big first inning there with the Nathaniel bomb to start things off. That was a huge one, his 14th of the season. And by the way, just saying, Nathaniel is starting to get a little bit hot before that trade deadline. That is not a bad thing at all for the Nationals. But furthermore than that, James Wood. James Wood, this guy is just incredible at this point in time. When I think of James Wood, I genuinely think of Superman at this point. 24 home runs on the season. That was his solo shot to make it 8-1. It was 433 feet, 116 miles per hour off the bat. That is our king getting ready for the home run derby. And I just got to say this. It's last night was finally felt like the first time I could watch the Nationals and kind of think to myself, everything might be okay. Gore is shoving. James Wood is hitting bolts. CJ Abrams getting on base. And while I was not thrilled with the lineup construction yesterday, Brady House got a hit. The only person that did not get a hit in the Nationals lineup yesterday was, unfortunately, Riley Adams, who's now batting 135 with a 430 OPS on the season. I'll leave that there. You know what I want to say. Start Drew Millis today. That's what I want to say. But again, watching last night, finally, I felt like the Nationals kind of got their swagger back a little bit, and maybe they can win some games here and put together a fun little watch for this team. Because again, we're in retooling mode at this point. But again, that's enough baseball. We talked about 5 minutes of baseball, real life baseball on today's show. But I did want to say this because one guy I had in mind for the Washington Nationals as far as their managerial position goes, Skip Schumacher, former player, former Marlins manager, weirdly got fired after last season with the Marlins, but he's kind of fits that role where I want. He's the kind of guy that I would want for this team to really kind of go after at this point. And when I think of Skip Schumacher, I think of number one, a great former player, but number two, someone who has that balance of analytics, but also someone who has played that game and also has a feel for the game. I thought he did really well as a Marlins manager last year. As far as him being fired, I don't really understand that. Still don't. I thought he was a really good manager, and talking over with a lot of people who work with the Marlins, they believe that he was a good manager. So I thought it was all kind of confusing to say the least. But again, that's just one name to keep in mind. So the Nationals do play tonight. They're hoping that they can get a series win with Miguel Cairo at the front of things for the first time as a Washington National. But we will discuss more on tomorrow's show about the Nationals, but more importantly, what the Nationals will do with that number one overall pick. We'll have that discussion and more on tomorrow's Locked On Nationals. Have a good one. Go Nats.